Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Donna.
How are you?
Hanging in, gestures at everything.
Same, same. Why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Matthew Lukens. I'm the chaplain at Canterbury House at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And
And I'm
you?
Donna McNiel. I'm the missioner to Michigan State University in East Lansing.
All right. And today we're just here to give the update we usually do about our campus ministries and where the support of the diocese is going.
So, how's this year gone for you, Matthew?
You know.
Great, right?
um, I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say there have been challenges, which I think we all know in the church right now. It's really made me look at what our ministry was offering. It really actually highlighted the gifts we brought that I wasn't actually appreciating how strong they were. I think two of the biggest offerings Canterbury had was actually just the gift of space in a university where space is at a premium. Everyone knew that they could come to Canterbury House if they needed a meeting or planning an action or a show or something like that. That actually were really a community center and not just for the Christian community, but for musicians and activists alike. It's actually been really hard for me to not be able to offer as much to those communities as we're normally able to. And our suppers. I think that the other huge cornerstone of the ministry we do is simply feeding people, both with our suppers and with our meal plans, our meal prep program. As a result, it's been making me really ask questions about what are elements of that we can salvage, even with pandemic conditions. And I've really come down to how can we still provide social connection in a place where social connection safely is very hard. So as a result, everything we are doing, as long as weather is going to allow, we're doing a blended in-person but Zoom optional sort of setup, which
Because Michigan is still in person, right?
It is. It is. Though a lot of my students didn't even come back to campus this semester. They're still taking, you can still take virtually in a lot of programs. And so a lot of people chose to do that. So as a result, we're meeting outside. I'm doing nothing inside. We're meeting outside, masks on. And I usually have a laptop set up with some speakers and a microphone. That way, even people who stayed home this semester can still call in. And so their face is there and we can hear them and we actually get to talk to them like they're there. And so really, I'm trying to see how can we retain a sense of in-person community, because I really think a huge challenge of COVID is how actually inhuman the circumstances we're living in day to day are, because people are social. And that's been really good, whether it's been a fire pit and making s'mores around a fire and talking about the week, or Bible study, or our evening prayer, which we just do in a park across the street from Canterbury House. What's playing out at MSU? What are you finding on the ground?
Well, our year started really, really well. Similarly, as we were focusing on what it was that we had to offer this particular community. And what's become clear is that we're a place where people of all ilk, every sexual orientation, gender identity, racial background. We have a number of multiracial students that have been involved, that Canterbury MSU really does welcome everybody. And in doing that, we take faith seriously. So there's lots of communities that are very welcome, but not always very welcome to a conversation about faith. So we're a place that takes faith seriously and also takes welcome and inclusion very seriously. And we were picking up traction on that and had a number of new students come. We did an awesome Glitter Ash Wednesday on campus that was just fabulous, like 2 weeks before COVID hit, and then COVID hit. And students were sent home. And so we've been meeting on Zoom and continuing those same conversations along those lines. Most of our participants are not Episcopalian. The Episcopal Church is new to them. And so lots of our conversations have been about how do we read scripture, and you can take it seriously and not take it literally, and what does that look like? And that has been a lot of fun, and we've done online worship like everybody else and all those sorts of things. What happened this fall is that MSU is entirely online, almost entirely online for undergraduates anyway. And so while there are a lot of students living in town, most of them are older students, and very few of them are Canterbury MSU students. So we are entirely online with a few exceptions. We're fortunate that we're next to All Saints. We don't have the space you do, but we're next to All Saints Episcopal Church that has a great big parking lot. So We've also invested in outdoor furniture and ways to meet outside. As you said, the lack of humanity in Zoom life is shocking. And we have maintained relationships with students online and some in person, though not as much as we'd be able to if we had online classes. I mean, if we had in-person classes happening, because we're entirely online, it's shaking out a little bit differently. Um, we're also going to work on doing s'mores in the parking lot. Anything we can do that creates that connection. That's the piece that I'm most concerned about this year is
Yeah.
trying to keep the community connected and also trying to ensure that our students, almost all of whom are sitting in a bedroom alone,
Yeah.
are continuing to have relationships that are life-giving and supportive and encouraging, not just, a sort of flat screen that they live on all day.
Yeah. So what are things you think might be able to apply more widely to the rest of the church, or what are things you think the church needs to hear about what's happening in the lives of young adults today and how that influences how we think about young adult ministry beyond just campus ministry?
Yeah, it's been interesting this summer because I'm also the associate rector at All Saints. And so
Mhm.
I've sort of been carrying both those, sort of one hand campus ministry, one hand parish, and doing exactly what you're asking is thinking about how the two connect to each other. And of course, All Saints is a very campus oriented congregation because of where we sit. Um, but there's no doubt that this will change how parishes work in the future. My hope is that that will include a significant amount of young adult leadership. I've been quoting the pastor of my brother's Methodist congregation at home, who said online one day that they'll be streaming until Jesus comes. So I think one of the things that's clear to all of us, certainly in campus ministry, but I'm sure to all the congregations that are watching, is that we have jumped the hurdle on technology.
Mhm.
A whole lot of us, particularly those of us who are a little bit younger than some others of us in the church, have been trying to encourage the church to move toward more use of technology, to take online community seriously, to use online communication in different ways. Well, we're doing that, and there's no going back from that. That is absolutely for sure. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, actually, it's kind of on a personal note that I'm really drawn back to. I graduated college in 2009, and so I had a front row seat for what was the generational effect of the 2008 financial crisis. And it really has me thinking through in terms of how like millennials and Gen Zers really exist in a very different economic reality than most people older than that experienced in terms of what it means to come of age in the United States right now. Which is like nothing novel. Like that's not really groundbreaking. If you like just look at like the statistics and the reality and what the impact ends up being. Because I mean, actually graduate. I remember in 2008, friends of mine looking up studies out graduating in a recession just actually has lifelong implications on your career. And that's really played out as I kind of look at my own cohort. But the thing I think that brings it to is really just a very basic ministry principle of listening to people and meeting them where they are and not assuming you know where they are. And I think in young adult ministry, especially, it draws to a point of don't assume that their young adulthood in any way might be what yours was like. Because it is very different, which is like, again, it's a very easy, it's one of those things that's simple but hard. Because I think I know in myself and even just being a decade, well, over a decade now out of college, that it can be so easy to impose my own experience and have to keep reminding, like, actually, college is very different than when I was there.
Yeah, and that was true before we were all online.
Yep, yep.
Yeah,
This isn't just COVID. I mean, because
right,
we're not even with millennials in college anymore. It's Gen Z
right,
in college.
right.
Millennials are in their the oldest millennials are in the late 30s.
Mhm.
And really just remembering those basic principles of listening and meeting people where they are. Because even though there are some surface elements that might trick you into thinking maybe this is similar because college continues to exist, because it does serve a particular function in American life, that doesn't mean experiences of them are in any way similar, even to what I had. So I just am continually called to show up every day like I know nothing, and the people I'm encountering are the experts on what's going on. And it's really humbling because I would like to think I know more than I do.
That could be the mantra for campus ministry is I know nothing.
Yes.
I brought some marshmallows. There's a fire. We're just going to sit around and you tell me what I need to know. Yeah, that's absolutely. Whether we're doing that online or in person, that's absolutely what we're up to.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I think is clear, and this is the other place where we have found at MSU that we have a particular voice to offer and space to build, is taking justice very seriously, and not just with our words. In all the protests this summer and the protests that are continuing, the church has to be a part of that. And if we're not, Gen Zers, much less millennials, and those who come after them will have nothing to do with us. It's kind of like the technology is we've been pushing and we've been getting close, but hadn't quite jumped the hurdle. Well, we've jumped the hurdle now. And if the church does not have a prophetic voice, we have no future.
I was actually reading an article this morning on Gen Z dating, and one of the points was so many people actually are even filtering by politics in terms of
absolutely.
I need to make sure you're someone who has the same values as I do.
Yeah.
I do have to say I'm really happy to have stepped into a place with a sort of history of Canterbury House, because activists even still, when there's an action going on, I was in a planning call among a lot of different organizations with how are we supporting what's happening with elections. People know Canterbury House is a place they can call if they need resources or just need another voice at the table in terms of working for justice in our community. And that it's such a gift to have had that established by the people that came before me, but also two, I can't echo enough what you're saying, how important it is to have standing like that. It's been a real gift, especially to be able to talk to people who otherwise wouldn't look twice at a church.
The same is true for us, because All Saints and Kit Carlson has been involved in a number of activist activities in recent years. We're a place that they call when they're looking for community members to participate on committees or be involved in action or those sorts of things. And it's absolutely essential if we have any future at all. Yeah. Okay, what else did we say?
I think that actually
we sort of got there.
We just never figured out how to stick the landing, though.
Yeah, let's do an ending. I'm gonna stop the recording. We can chat about it.
Okay.
I'll splice it. So where do we go from here?
Something also that someone said about generational trends between millennials versus Gen Z was millennials were the last to really kind of have expectations of the institutions they were operating in, whereas Gen Z is really empowered to work in a world where they're having to kind of figure out their own thing. And what I'm really finding is I'm getting to work with leaders who have really strong vision and really amazing ideas and such creativity about how they're engaging the world and how they intend to continue to engage the world, working both within systems and without, in a way that's been earned by what they've experienced growing up. And so I think it's one of the real gifts of campus ministry, and I think a gift of the church going forward, is giving platform and giving support to people who have such a strong sense of call, especially in the many different changes the world is going under right now. What are you finding?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. The students that I spend time with are absolutely committed to service in whatever that means. They're teachers and they're physicians and are planning to be grad students or not. They intend to help build the world they want. They don't at all have any expectation that it's going to be available to them, which is interesting because that's the opposite of what pop culture will say about them.
Yeah.
The students I know, in fact, are not expecting any handouts.
Yeah.
They know that any participation ribbons they got are not any more useful than the ribbon they're printed on. They really are expecting to build a different world. And the trick, I think, for us in particular, like you and I, but the church in general, is that we've got to watch out. If we want to be a part of that future, which I certainly do because it's exciting and encouraging and hopeful, we've got to have their backs.
Yeah.
And if we don't, I mean, this is what I said a minute ago, if we don't, they'll move on. They're
Yeah.
not going to waste time, I think, with a community, much less an institution that doesn't support and help them do the building that they're ready to do.
And I think that the church does have something to offer, does have a place, because I think there's like support isn't abdicating and doing nothing, and support
Right.
isn't trying to control what someone does. There's still a middle ground between those two different poles of offering support from experience, both of institutions and just that time gives people who are in positions like ours in ministry.
Absolutely. And our students are interested in having the conversations about faith and scripture and what does it mean to be a person of faith who's working for justice. They
Mhm.
want to have that dialogue. I think they do want to draw on the wisdom that has come before. They're just not going to put up with anything that gets in the way of that.
Yeah.
Anything that helps spur them on, they're all for it. And otherwise, it's going to get left by the wayside, which I think is the very good news. It
Because
is
who's got the
time for us.
time?
Right, and it is there's definitely stuff that we need to leave along the side, so I'm all for it. I think it's
Right.
a great day for the church.